This is my review of Invader Zim Enter the Florpus. Okay, so I'm a bit late on this film. I don't know when it came out. I think it was like months ago or something like that. Either way, I kind of slacked on it a little bit. And then somebody on my Discord told me that I should review it, and because it's apparently a good film, and they were right. But why did it take me so long to review it? So, anyway, if you aren't familiar with the concept of Invader Zim is about an alien conqueror who sucks at his job. That's really the whole premise of the show. So, Zim, the titular character Invader Zim, is an Urkin invader who was sent to Earth specifically because the tallest didn't like him. So, and they didn't know that Earth was there, and they just sent him to Earth, not knowing it actually existed. And Zim then tries to conquer Earth, so that the Urkin Empire can take it over, even despite the fact that the Urkin's Empire really doesn't care, like, at all. But yeah, and the only one who's able to stop him is Dib Membrane, his human adversary, who is also the main antagonist of the series. So yeah, the show is about Zim's antics of trying to take over the planet, but as you guys probably may or may not know, the show was on a long time ago and it was just randomly canceled because it wasn't popular with the right audience of people. And that's where Enter the Florpus came in. It actually points out that Zim just randomly vanished for no real reason, and nobody is entirely and pretty much just alludes to the fact that the show was canceled. Meanwhile, Dib has spent the past who knows how long waiting for Zim to resurface, to the point where his sister Gaz and his father, Dr. Membrane, have become a little bit concerned for him. His dad a little less so, because his dad is a man of science and doesn't believe aliens are very scientific. And he is kind of right. It is a little bit far-fetched about the idea of alien life, but it does cause a rift between Dib and his father, which is explored in this film just a bit. So Gaz goes to check out Dib's room because he hasn't been down for a meal who knows how long, and she has to wear special equipment because he smells terrible. He hasn't. So it's established he hasn't moved in however long, possibly years. But yeah, he's been sitting in a chair in his room watching a surveillance feed for who knows how long, until Zim eventually randomly shows up, and he finally leaves his room after who knows how long to confront Zim. But Zim reveals that phase 1 of his plan was to actually, I don't know, apparently his plan was to get Dib stuck to his chair and unable to move, and it worked. But because this is Zim we were talking about, he doesn't actually have a phase 2, and tries to think of what his second phase is, of something he has to think over while in a conference call with the leaders of the Urkin Empire, because for some reason the Urkin Empire is the royalty for the Urkin Empire is based on a genetic quirk that makes you a lot taller for some reason. So, and it's not entirely clear why that is. But anyways, Zim, after realizing he doesn't have a phase 2, begins brainstorming for a phase 2 while Dib gets back in shape. Something that they played to great effect due to the fact that he is now got way too buff, and then he got just buff enough. Meanwhile, Zim, finally out of ideas, decides to check the computer to see just when the Urkin Empire is going to come across Earth, only to discover that they never will, and he's visibly heartbroken. So when Dib finally goes to confront him, Zim is just in a cocoon of nachos, unable to cope with his grief. and Dib takes pity on him for once in his life, and realizes that the best way to help both their problems is for the two of them to work together. Since Zim no longer has any meaning to his life anymore, because his whole point was to conquer Earth for the Urkin Empire, and the Urkins aren't even going to come across the Earth at all, that he's kind of in a depressed state, and Dib kind of takes advantage of it, and decides to introduce introduce him to the entire world during his dad's keynote speech. Something that is alluded a little bit to the film, but his dad kind of just dismisses what he's doing when he realizes he's going to fight Zim, and that's pretty much where it ends. But also it's also revealed that over the years, Zib has just collected a bunch of Zim's stuff and is stored in their garage, and Dr. Membrane doesn't believe in any of it. This moment is Dib trying to make his father proud, while also trying to expose Zim for who he is, and winds up teaming up with Zim, albeit briefly, in order to try and expose him for who he is. But this goes a bit awry because during the keynote speech, which spawns one of my favorite memes ever, by the way, but during the keynote speech, Zim uses a device to try and take over the keynote speech so that Dib could expose Zim for who he is. But then Zim takes over the speech for himself and knocks out Dr. Membrane, transports him God knows where, and then takes over the keynote speech for himself, revealing that he made several modifications to Dr. Membrane's new mem bracelets, which are designed to help create world peace. That's really all they do. And Zim has made some dangerous modifications to them. It's not revealed what until much later. But Dib is concerned because he's suddenly knocked out and locked in his house, and he's now under house arrest thanks to Zim's efforts. And Dib can't, and his sister Gaz can't leave because now there's a clone of Dr. Membrane in their house, keeping careful careful watch on them so that they don't escape. But Zim, his plan is basically to create a human chain across the entire planet, which Dr. Membrane was also planning to do, but for Zim it's something completely different. So Zim does complete his goal after having Gur write a song to inspire the humans to actually link up as a human chain, and it works. And at first, nothing happens. But then Zim reveals the entire point of his plan. He plans to use one of his henchmen, a little robot moose named aptly Mini Moose, to transport the entire planet in path of the Urkin Empire. Unfortunately, this has the unintended side effect of summoning a Florpus hole, which is, for lack of a better word, it's apparently a hole that combines space-time across the multiverse, and while slowly destroying any planets that are sucked in it. So, yeah. The Urkin Empire eventually finds out, and the Tallest are very upset at the fact that Zim is now in their path, and make plans to actually blow up the Earth. Meanwhile, Dib and Gaz try to think of a way to actually stop Zim before that plan actually happens, and before the Florpus hole actually tears them apart, as well as the Tallest showing up and blowing everything to pieces. So, eventually they come up with the great idea to trick the fake Dr. Membrane into letting them near the storage shed so that they can convince Zim's old ship to take them to the space prison where Dr. Membrane is being held. And it works. So they are able to convince the ship, because the ship hates Zim more than it hates Dib. So, and that's saying something, because it really hates Dib. So they're able to convince the ship to take them to where they need to go. Meanwhile, Zim is preparing for the invasion of the Tallest and the Urkin Empire, and has even had a special throne made by Gur, which doesn't work entirely as expected due to the fact that he kind of mixed up the wiring. So the peanut button shoots flames, and the flame button shoots peanuts. But it's yeah. The thing is that there's these giant pipes on the back of the throne, and it's very tall. And the pipes on the back of the throne are either to shoot either peanuts or shoot flames. And Gur mixed up the two because it's Gur. So yeah, they go. So yeah, meanwhile Zim uses his newfound throne to terrorize the humans while he waits for the tallest to show up. But eventually Dib and Gaz arrive at the prison and are immediately captured. At which point Dib goes into a spiraling depression, and Gaz talks him out of it. And then Dib goes into a speech about how he's going to save the Earth, and instead he only just doomed it to its fate. So he's making a speech about that, but then he's cut off when it's revealed that Dr. Membrane's in the same cell as them. And Dr. Membrane actually reveals the entire point that he actually was theoretically considering, that some sort of theoretical non-existent hyperblob, which is what Zim used to teleport the entire planet, could be activated with a giant technological moose, something that Zim also happened to have handy, and that theoretically he could reverse the effects. But also points out that he may or may not believe what's going on, because he kind of thinks he's hallucinating because he got hit on the back of the head. So Dib and Gaz, with the ship's help, actually transport him back to Earth, or rather where it is now, with the ship bringing in a new special cart to transport Dib and Dr. Membrane, because as the ship puts it, 3 human butts is just way too many. So she brought along enforcements. So Dib and Dr. Membrane are forced in the back while Gaz sits in the front, and they head back to Earth. So eventually they do get there, but the problem is that there's a giant asteroid field in the way due to the fact that the Florpus is constantly dividing planets across space-time, and the debris is going everywhere. So the ship needs Gaz's help, and Gaz uses the defense mechanisms to take it out. Something she's very excited about because it's essentially a VR headset. But because of the Florpus, the back car where Dib and Dr. Membrane are sitting suddenly comes apart, and Dib tries to hold on to his father, pointing out that the main reason that he just wants his father to be proud of him. And then his father says something that touches Dib right to his very heart. That no matter what he does, his father's always proud of him. And then his father floats into space. But not for very long, as we'll see later. So Dib, upon crash landing on Earth, chases after Zim to try and get a hold of Mini Moose. And antics ensue in a very reminiscent style of the show. And I'm not going to go over it, mainly because it's kind of ridiculous and kind of doesn't make any real sense. But eventually Dib catches up to Zim, but is stopped by Zim's robot army, who then try to crush Dib under their own weight. At which point Dr. Membrane is revealed to be alive, saves his son, and then uses his cybernetics to go all ham on every robot in the vicinity. But unfortunately, thanks to Clone Membrane, he's unable to finish off Zim once and for all, and Zim is still in possession of the mini boost. So eventually, Gaz crashes with the ship, and using a ham from earlier, which it makes reference to, but it's only slightly important to the story, but it's only really used for that one moment and that one moment only. Gaz slaps Zim with a ham. She slaps him with a ham. That's all I got. But unfortunately, that causes Fake Membrane to get a hold of the Mini Moose, and the thing about Fake Membrane is that it's a bit conflicted as to what it should do. So Zim is trying to get the clone to destroy his family, quote unquote, but he's unable to comprehend that because he was made to be Dr. Membrane's replacement. He's meant to be Dr. Membrane's replacement, which means he's starting to see the Membrane family as his own family. So he's unable to do what Zim asks, and even helps the kids out by holding Zim hostage with his giant oversized hand. I don't know if there's any pictures of this guy yet. I probably have already shown them if there are, but he looks off. He looks like Dr. Membrane with a fish head and a giant arm. That's really all it is. But then things kind of come to a bit of a head as the Urkin Empire has finally arrived and are prepared to blow Earth to smithereens, and also the Earth is being sucked into the Florpus hole from the opposite side. And what we get is a bunch of nightmare fuel as the planet just shifts between different realities, and we see several different animation styles, all of which are reminiscent in some form to another different type of animation style. So it's a very surreal scene, and it's weird. But eventually Dr. Membrane is able to figure out how to transfer everybody back to the planet, and with the help of the giant human chain again, which is never explained how it actually works. But all we know is that it eventually does link up somehow. It's never explained, but Dr. Membrane is able to transport the Earth back to where it was, and the Urkin Empire, because the tallest are so stubborn on going straight, fly right into the Florpus hole, and that's where the Urkin Empire is seen to this day. We don't know what happened to the Urkin Empire. They could be dead. We don't know, but they're gone. They're not in the story anymore. And everything goes back to normal. Zim has returned to his usual antics. Dr. Membrane is convinced that it was all hallucination and doesn't remember most of what happened. The only thing that's permanent is the fake membrane, which is now hanging around the house making pudding. But yeah, Enter the Florpus is definitely a weird story. It's definitely in keeping with the show, and also they got Justin Roiland from Rick and Morty to voice some lines. So if you like Rick and Morty, watch it for that. But yeah, the show, if you liked Invader Zim, this is definitely the movie for you. I enjoyed it. There's a lot. It's kind of short. It's kind of on the short side, but it isn't. But it is a pretty interesting little story nonetheless, because it's just everything that made Invader Zim great, and also alluded to the fact that the show was canceled at the very beginning. So there's that. But yeah, Into the Florpus, great movie. If you like Invader Zim, watch it. If you just like funny movies in general, watch it. It's utterly ridiculous, so warnings about that. But other than that, it's a good movie, and I definitely would recommend it. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also check out my Patreon description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I'd definitely appreciate it if you did that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!